warm up your brain. So a healthcare proxy enables you to appoint someone to make healthcare decisions if you can't do it. As long as you're competent, the doctor will say, are you okay with this procedure? Do you want to do this? And you can answer. But if you can't answer, they're going to look to a healthcare proxy. That's the person that you chose to make healthcare decisions for you if you couldn't do it. If you don't do the healthcare proxy, though, New York State's going to decide who's going to make those decisions for you. And it may not be someone you want. Maybe your spouse, but you're separated from that spouse and you don't see eye to eye anymore. Or maybe they choose your son who's 55 and living in the basement, and you're having a serious failure to launch situation going on there, and he's not really emotionally equipped to make those decisions. And you don't want him making those decisions. You want your daughter, who's the doctor, making those decisions. So you need to choose in advance. A good time to update your healthcare proxy or consider doing one is you're about to retire, thinking about moving. You want to reduce conflict in your family. This way they know that this is the person that you wanted to make those decisions for you. We also add in the healthcare proxy organ donation information. Your pocketbook or wallet may not make it to the hospital with you, and then the doctor or the facility won't be aware of what your wishes are. But if they're on the healthcare proxy, that's great because now everybody can see them. If you don't do a healthcare proxy and there's a conflict, sometimes the court has to appoint a guardian, and that's a very expensive court proceeding, and you want to avoid that at all costs. What's the right age to do a healthcare proxy? The easy answer is do it before you get sick, or do it before the next pandemic, or do it now because it's free. And not only is it free, you can Zoom with an attorney in our office, and you can sign it at home with your spouse from your couch, COVID-free. So it can't get any easier than that. That may change, but right now the governor is allowing us to do everything over Zoom. So you can call us, we'll email you the questionnaire, and then you can fill out the questionnaire, mail it into us, we'll mail you drafts, you can review it with us, and then sign it from home. You don't even have to come into the office. How many people can I appoint to do on my healthcare proxy? Well, you can't have a committee making healthcare decisions. You can only appoint one person at a time. New York State does not want a committee making healthcare decisions. So you can appoint your spouse, and then your child, and then a child after that. It has to be witnessed by two people, and you don't want your agent being the witness because then it's no good. So if you appoint your spouse can't be the witness. Remember, we'll provide the witnesses for you, and it's free. It does not have to be notarized. If you have two kids, you can't make them both together. And that's not me being difficult, that's New York State. Typically, this is a webinar, but typically during a regular Zoom, I can see into all your houses and I can see what color your ceiling is. So I want you to look up at the ceiling right now and think about what color is your ceiling. And typically I can see a lot of different ceilings, and I'll see off-white, bone, cream, ceiling white, dirty. There's a lot of different possibilities at what color the ceiling could be, and no one's really emotionally attached to the ceiling, and it's not 2 a.m. right now. So that's why New York State wants one fire chief, one commander in chief. They don't want a committee making healthcare decisions during a crisis. So if you put two kids on there equal, it will not work. It's not a valid healthcare proxy. So pick the child that lives with you, pick the one that's a doctor, pick the one that's most familiar with your medical needs. If you still can't decide which child to pick whichever child you love the most. Someone recently said, I don't love one more than the other one. In fact, I hate them both equally. And I thought that was a funny response. But you can't pick a committee. It has to be one then the other. Where do you keep your healthcare proxy? You're not going to keep the original with us, and you're not going to keep it in the safety deposit box at the bank. Now, my wife is a teacher, and she's always fond of telling me that when she's teaching, at any given time, only half of her class is listening. And I know that's happening right now in the audience. So do not keep your healthcare proxy in a safety deposit box because banks and law offices are closed on weekends and holidays, and that's when a crisis will arise. So the best place to keep it is in your hall closet, under your blue towel, in your fireproof box. Where do you get a fireproof box? I used to have to say Amazon.com. And if I have to say the .com at this point, you probably have larger issues. The fact that you could get on this Zoom means that you know how to use the internet and you could order a fireproof box. Also, fireproof boxes are typically waterproof, so when they dose your house with fire, your stock will stay fire-free and dry, which is really important. has to be witnessed by two people. We'll provide the two witnesses. It does not have to be notarized, and you can do this all over Zoom right now. What happens if you move? If you move from Long Island to the city, or you're moving out of the city to get away from COVID, you don't have to update it if you're in the same state. But if you move to New Jersey, or you move to Pennsylvania, or you move to Florida, you can do it through the legal plan and update it in that state. You want the person that you're giving the form to respond as if it's a crisis. And if you give them a form that they're not familiar with, and they have to get it reviewed by their legal department, that can be an unnecessary delay and can hamper the response time that you require in an emergency. How often should you update a healthcare proxy? Well, if your agent is not willing to serve anymore, or you want to pick a different agent, or you move out of a state, you should review it maybe every 5 or 6 years to make sure that it still reflects your wishes. The healthcare proxy form has not changed in New York for quite some time. The power of attorney typically changes at a much more rapid rate than the healthcare proxy. What if you become sick outside the state of New York? You're driving from New York to Florida and you get into an accident in North Carolina. Will North Carolina honor a New York healthcare proxy? The answer is yes. We're all one country. Every state is supposed to give every other state full faith and credit and honor their docs. But if you move to North Carolina, it's probably a good idea to update it in North Carolina. When we do a healthcare proxy, we also do something called a living will. Healthcare proxy, I'm appointing an agent to make decisions for me if I can't do it. A living will is not a will. It's similar to a do not resuscitate. A do not resuscitate says, don't resuscitate me no matter what. A living will says, I want you to fix me. Try and save me if you can. But if I can't be saved, I'm in a permanent vegetative state. I'm a vegetable. I'm not going to recover from my illness. Then don't revive me. So it's very exciting to tell you how awesome the benefits are of Legal Shield. If I have a heart attack right now from the excitement of telling you how great Legal Shield is, and I go down on the Zoom screen, I want you to call 911. I want you to save me. There's things that I need to do. I want to live. But if I'm going to be in a permanent vegetative state, I'm going to be on a feeding tube, an event, I'm brain dead in the corner of a nursing home, that's not for me. I don't want to be a burden on my family. So I did the living will, which is a reflection or a statement of my wishes so that everybody's clear on what I want. Why do you need a living will? Because people need to know what your wishes are. You can't say to a doctor or a judge, Your Honor, my wife and I had this conversation every Thanksgiving for the past 22 years, and she was pretty adamant that if she was in a permanent vegetative state, she did not want to get the paddles. The doctor or the judge is going to say, okay, we need clear and convincing evidence. What does that mean? In writing. So that's what the living will says. It reduces conflict because everybody knows what your wishes are, and healthcare providers know what your wishes are. When should you do a living will? Well, the easy answer is do it before you become sick, or do it before the next wave of the pandemic, or do it before you're in an irreversible, permanent vegetative state, or do it now, because it's free with the legal plan. You don't even have to come into our office. Currently, you can Zoom with an attorney, and we can sign it and get you all hooked up. The governor may change that, but now's a good time to do it. Who do you appoint? Well, that's a trick question. You're not really appointing anyone. Again, it's just a statement of your wishes. If you have a stroke, from all the information I'm giving you, which took me 3 years to learn, I'm going to jam it in one little package and give it to you in 40 minutes. If I overload your brain and you go down on the Zoom, you probably want me to call 911 and save you, unless you're going to be in a permanent vegetative state. Then you need the living will. Now, I did have someone say to me once, I'm so adamant about not being resuscitated that I actually tattooed on my chest, do not resuscitate me. And I thought, wow, that had to have hurt a lot more than Zooming with our office. It also had to cost a lot more than joining Legal Shield, and you didn't have a witness by two people, so it's not even enforceable. Now, some of you are control freaks, and you're thinking, I know what's going to happen, Mr. Kramer. As soon as I have to get my tonsils taken out, my wife's going to come in there and say, okay, doc, as soon as you gas them, pull the plug, I want the life insurance money. That's not how it works. You have to be in a permanent, irreversible vegetative state. You're not going to recover or get better. Where do you keep the living will? Well, you keep it with the healthcare proxy. Where don't you keep the healthcare proxy and living will? In a bank or a law office. We can store a digital copy for you, and then we'll have the ability to email it to someone for you if there's an issue. But you want to keep the original in your hall closet under your Lucky Blue towel in a 5-foot box and make sure your agent knows how to get in there. It has to be witnessed by 2 people. It does not have to be notarized. Your healthcare proxy should not be the witness. We can provide the witnesses for you free. There's no cost to doing it. It's a no-brainer. You should consider updating your living will if your medical condition changes. Maybe your condition goes from treatable to terminal, or maybe now they have a cure for whatever issue you had, or you move to another state, because the rules regarding living wills can vary from state to state. Anytime your belief system changes, you should probably take a look at this document. All right, I've warmed up your brains. Now we're getting to the real heavy stuff here, and probably the most important. If you are going to take away one thing today, your morning coffee is wearing off, you're crashing out from the sugar that you had at lunch, I'm going to lose you in about 5 minutes. Your takeaway should be, I got to get my power of attorney. If I don't do a healthcare proxy, New York State will appoint someone to make healthcare decisions for me. If I don't do a will, New York State's going to decide where my money goes. If I don't do a will, New York State's will choose who's going to be my executor. If I don't do a power of attorney, though, no one can make financial decisions for me. If I don't have a power of attorney, my wife can't take my name off the deed of the house to save the house if I'm sick. She can't talk to my insurance companies. She can't transfer my car and motor vehicles. It's really, really the number one really important estate planning tool. That's where you start with. If you're going to build a hospital out of elder law blocks, the foundation block is power of attorney. That's where you start. If you're going to take a college curriculum all in elder law, power of attorney is 101. That's your first class. Because everything else that we're going to talk about from an asset protection standpoint can be done with a power of attorney, but you can't do it after you become sick. Husband and wife are driving upstate. They stop at a parking garage. Husband is badly injured. Wife is concerned. He's going to need 1.5 years worth of rehab. It's going to cost a fortune. If I spend all my money in his care, there'll be nothing left for me. And now I'm going to have to live in a van down by the river. What do? Now, she had legal shield. She was able to use her power of attorney, pull all the money out of his name, put it in her name, protect it, and get his care covered. Because she thought ahead. She was proactive. There's preventative planning and crisis planning. When you preventative plan, you can save much more. When you crisis plan, you can't always save it all. Mom was a teacher. Dad worked for a utility in the city. They got later in life. Dad thought he was never going to get married. So he forgot to change his election on his pension should he retire or pass away to go to his wife. He was going to take the max. He got COVID, unfortunately, started to go downhill real fast. And wife wanted to be able to change that election on his pension so that if he passed away first, she would get his pension. It's a tremendous loss. She did not have power of attorney, so she could not make that financial decision even for her spouse. She had to go to the court to become his guardian. The problem with becoming someone's guardian is it's a lengthy, time-consuming procedure, and it's very expensive. So even though she initiated it, she was not able to do it in time. Her husband passed away, and she lost his pension. So don't be that type of client. When should you do a power of attorney? Again, the easy answer is do it before you get sick, or do it before the next strain of the pandemic, or do it now because it's free with your legal plan. There is a new power of attorney form coming out this summer, around July. If you've never done a power of attorney, don't wait till July to do it. You should probably do it now and then update it in July. If you've done a power of attorney with us recently, you're going to want to wait then and update it in July because a new form is coming out. When the new form comes out, it's not going to make your old one invalid. But imagine a couple of years from now when you go to use it and you give the older form to someone at a bank, and that person, not the most sophisticated person in the world, they're only familiar with the newer form, so they have to run it up through the chain of command, and that takes a lot of time, and now you're economically hurt because you didn't have the latest, greatest, most up-to-date power of attorney. Power of attorneys are not all equal. They're not the same. So if you do one at Citibank, it's only going to work at Citibank. If you do one at Chase, it'll only work with Chase. If you do one with the IRS, it'll only work with the IRS. So you want what's called a general durable power of attorney. General means it covers everything. And durable means it still works after you become incapacitated. If I hire you to be my real estate agent, you can help me sell my house. You're my agent. You can help me stage the house. You can help me figure out a price to sell it at. You can help me find a purchaser. But if I become incapacitated, you can't sell the house without my consent. So that agency relationship, it gets severed once I become incapacitated. The general durable power of attorney survives my incapacitation. That's why you want it. Son calls me up and says, Dad's starting to lose it. I think I want to get the power of attorney done before he totally loses it, because I don't want to have to become his guardian, because I understand that that is a very expensive process. So I say, great, come in with Dad. Dad walks in, we shake hands, we start engaging, and he says, I'm a new retiree. I didn't realize what a hyper-competitive person I am. I've discovered the fishing channel. Every time they catch a fish, I got to catch the same fish. Every time they get a bigger fish, I have to catch that bigger fish. Every time they get a bigger boat, I have to get a bigger boat. And when I get a bigger boat, I have to extend my dock. And it's an arduous permit process with my town. And I'm starting to think to myself, wait, Dad is sharp as a tack here. His son trying to pull a fast one. And then Dad says, excuse me, I got to use the restroom. And he leaves and doesn't come back. And then my paralegal walks him into my office again. He extends his hand as if we've never met. It was just like Groundhog Day. We started the whole conversation over again. So what Dad would do is he gets up in the morning, cooks himself breakfast, eats breakfast, goes to the bank, pays his bills, comes home, cooks himself lunch, eats lunch, watches the fishing channel, gets all riled up, goes back to the bank, and pays the same bills. And son says, hang on, bank teller. Dad doesn't have capacity here. I don't want him paying the bills. And bank teller says, well, I just spoke with Dad. He appears totally competent to me. Either produce a power of attorney, or you have to go to the court and become his guardian. And by the way, that's a $15,000 mistake. So you want to have that power of attorney before there's an issue. The general durable power of attorney. And as a reminder, since I know half of you aren't listening to me, there is a new power of attorney coming out in July. You're going to want to update your power of attorney. Even if you do one tomorrow, you're going to want to update it in July. How many people can I appoint on my power of attorney to make financial decisions for me if I can't do it? Well, remember, on the healthcare proxy, you can appoint an agent, and have a backup agent, and have a backup agent after that. No committee. On a power of attorney, you can have a committee. My parents appointed each other, and then my sister and I are equal. If I'm sick, she can act without me. If I don't want to act, she can act. If she's out of the country, I can act. So we can act independently, which is nice. When you handcuff people together, sometimes it's unduly burdensome, and you can't get both people to the bank at the same time, and it really doesn't work. Where do you keep the power of attorney? Well, again, keep it with the healthcare proxy and the living will. You don't keep it in the bank. You don't keep the original with us. You keep it in the hall closet under the blue towel in a fireproof box. I said to him, and don't do it yourself. I scare you when you say, boy, I want a power of attorney. I'm going to YouTube that today. I'm going to Google power of attorney. I'm just going to print one out. And I'll wait until July. Don't do it yourself. If you do it wrong, which you probably will, it will not work. And you will not find out it won't work until you try to use it. And when you use it and it doesn't work, the alternative is a guardianship proceeding, and that's a $15,000 court proceeding. It is a colossal waste of time and money. It is your takeaway from today is I got to get that power of attorney done. The healthcare proxy and the living will have to be witnessed and not notarized. The power of attorney has to be witnessed and notarized, and the person you appoint has to sign in front of a notary also. So it is a complex form, and you could do it wrong, so don't do it yourself. You get it through the legal plan, and you can do it via Zoom right now. It can't get any easier. How often should you update the power of attorney? Well, you should probably update it every 5 or 6 years, but you're definitely going to want to update it in July of this year. Daughter calls up and says, Mom's in a rehab facility. They're going to discharge her on Thursday. We want to take her home. And we want to apply for Medicaid to pay for an aide to live with Mom. It's our understanding that if we use the power of attorney, we can transfer Mom's money into a trust and then apply the following month to get Medicaid to pay for the aide. Is that true? The answer is yes. Now, that rule is going to change in January. But today, you can transfer the money this month and apply the following month for home care. So we gave Mom's power of attorney to all 3 of her banks and said, bank, you got to get the money out this month so we can apply next month to get Medicaid to pay for an aide, because Mom would rather stay at home with care than stay in the the long-term care facility. First two banks said, no problem. Take the money, you're the agent. The third bank said, your form, it's old. It doesn't look like everybody else's form that we saw this week. You got to send it to our regional office so they can approve it. So now I send the power attorney over to the regional office and I call them. Hello, regional bank office. I need you to recognize this power of attorney. I know it's 10 years old, but I need you to recognize it so we can take the money out today and apply next month to get Medicaid to pay for an aid. Mom wants to age in place at home with care. And they say, your power of attorney, it's like 11 years old now. You should probably have it reviewed by our legal department. But they're based in Massachusetts. So it took me 2 months to force this bank to recognize a 10-year-old power of attorney. And it cost the family about $9,000 in home care benefits because they brought mom home and had to private pay because they couldn't make her eligible for Medicaid because of the delay of using an old power of attorney. So it's your takeaway from today is get that power of attorney updated. And it's free with the legal plan. So a healthcare proxy, a living will, and a will are 3 documents that you use while you're alive. When you pass away, that's when the will kicks in. So the will determines where your stuff's going to go and who's going to be in charge. Most people don't realize they need a will until after a relative or a friend one has passed away and they see that the conflict and the time delay that was associated with not properly planning. So the will is the way to go. You may think, I put a beneficiary on everything I have. Do I still need a will? The answer is yes, because you didn't put a beneficiary on everything you have. You didn't put a beneficiary in your car. Your house doesn't have a beneficiary on it. There may be a tax refund after you pass away, or they may return your cable box and you get a refund, or you may get run over by a Pepsi truck and the state needs someone to serve as executor to file a claim against the person who harmed you. When should you do a will? Well, the easy answer is do it before you die. If you don't know when that's going to be, then do it before the next pandemic. If you don't know when that's going to be, do it now because it's free. There's no reason not to do it. Good reasons to update your will or just review it are you're going to retire, you inherit some money, your estate increases. Maybe you put everything in Bitcoin and now you're so wealthy you're just watching the Zoom for fun. Or maybe you have birth of a new heir, you have some new kids or some new grandkids and you want to protect money for them. Or you have a disabled loved one you want to provide for. Or you're going to get divorced. All good reasons to do a will. Where do you keep the will? Well, you don't keep the will in a bank. Definitely, I know only half of you are listening, so don't store the will in the bank. If you store the will in the bank, nobody can get to it. But Mr. Kramer, I remember when my mom passed away, I was joined on her box, and I went down there and got the will out before they found out. Well, the problem is you can't do that anymore, because as soon as you pass away and notify the funeral home home notifies Social Security notifies the bank. There's a death index that they all triangulate. If I tell you why, you might remember. They don't want you going into mom's box, even though your name is on it. They don't want you going in there and taking out $1 million of cash or the Hope Diamond or a Renoir that she rolled up in there because they want to get the estate tax. So they're going to seal that box. So don't put your will in a safety deposit box. Also, do not remove the staples from a will. I know only half of you are listening. So staple, and my wife always says stress positive reinforcement. So staples good. Don't remove them. If you take, and if I tell you why, you may remember. If you take the staples out of a will, there's a presumption, the court will presume that the beneficiary took the staples out and swapped the pages, leaving all the money to them. So the will's no good. So I was taking a shower one day, and I was thinking in the shower, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to print on the will paper, right where the staples go, in capital letters. And I'm going to put those capital letters in red ink on top of the staples. And it says, do not remove the staples. Because I was thinking, this is such a good idea. I'm going to be so rich. I'll sell this idea to every lawyer in the country. But I haven't figured out a way to monetize this yet. So if you figure out a way and you want to partner up with me, I'll split the money with you 50-50. Now, the very first person that I sent a will to that said, do not remove the staples, on top of the staples, in capital letters, in red ink, wanted to make a copy of their will, remove the staples to make a copy, and revoke their will. So do not remove the staples from the will. Also, if you want to change your will, you can't handwrite on the will and initial it. That doesn't work. You can't write on a will. Don't write on your will. We can do a new will for you, and it's free. Also, don't use the words my estate as your beneficiary. If you wanted to go to your kids, name your kids. You wanted to go to a charity, name the charity. Don't use the words my estate. My estate. Typically, if you have life insurance and you use the words my estate or a retirement account, in particular, if you write the words my estate, you could potentially expose yourself to a lot of income tax that you would not normally have to pay if you left the money directly to the kids or directly to a charity. We can store your will for you. That's what we will store for you. We will not store your healthcare proxy and living will, the original ones. If you have a fireproof box, that's the best place to put it. Also, don't put it in Grandpa's World War II ammo box or a metal filing cabinet in the basement, because we learned from Hurricane Sandy that not only can documents burn, but they can drown. When people's houses flood, the basement fills up, and those metal filing cabinets and Grandpa's World War II ammo box, not waterproof. And all those documents became a 1-inch thick, unreadable pancake. And if you can't separate the pages, I can't separate the pages, so then it's no good. The will has to be witnessed by 2 people and notarized. We will provide the witnesses and the notary. You don't even have to come into our office. Right now, the governor is allowing us to do this over Zoom. Hopefully that won't go away. What is a trust? Well, there's lots of different types of trusts. And to go really deep into the trust topic is probably beyond today's spectrum. But a trust is an agreement between you and the trustee and the beneficiary. Typically, the reason people do trusts is to reduce tax or minimize tax. Estate tax, capital gains tax, income tax, gift tax. You don't want the tax man to get as little as possible. Also, you use a trust to avoid probate. People don't know what that is, but they know it's bad. And people want to protect their assets should they need long-term care later in life. Now, what's more likely? That you're going to have a fire in your house, or that you or your spouse will require some type of care at some point? Probably the care, right? Yet everyone has fire insurance, but very few people have long-term care insurance. There's lots of advantages in doing a trust. Asset protection is the big one. You want to protect your assets in case you go into a nursing home down the road or you need home care. You keep all your tax exemptions. So if you put your house into a trust, you don't pay, you don't lose your STAR exemption or your veterans benefit or your income tax deduction or your enhanced STAR. You keep all the benefits of ownership. You avoid probate, meaning if my dad passes away, whatever's in that trust comes to me automatically. I don't have to go to the court and get court's permission. Especially if you have property in multiple states. If you have a house in New York and a house in Florida, you don't have to probate your estate in New York and then probate it again in Florida. It only benefits the lawyers. It can minimize estate tax and it can minimize capital gains tax. So if I buy this pen for $1 and I sell it for 10, I made $9. I could be potentially liable for that tax on that gain. So you want to avoid that tax if possible. If you put your home into a trust, you retain the ability to sell your house. So if I put my New York house in the trust and I sell it, I can use the trust money to buy a new house in Arizona, and the new house in Arizona stays protected. I also, as the person who set up the trust, I also retain the ability to change the beneficiary and fire the trustee. That's a big one. People don't believe that's true. If my dad sets up a trust and he says, Steve, I want you, as trustee, I want you to sell the house. And I say, I don't want to sell your house, Dad. In fact, your house has always been nicer than mine. And I've been waiting for you to go, quite frankly, so I can move my family into your house. And he would say, Steve, you're fired. And he would fire me as trustee. And not only that, he would say, remember how I was going to leave you that house? I'm not leaving you that house anymore. I'm changing the beneficiary to the Legal Shield members of New York. So you have a lot of control. You also can use a trust to protect assets for a disabled beneficiary. If you have a child with some special needs and you do not want to knock them off financial aid or any type of government benefits, you need to set up a special needs trust. And if you have a pet, I showed you my dog before, he's finally not panting. You know, pets require care and they can't care for themselves. So if you have a small dog which will live a long time, or a bird or a reptile or a horse, they can outlive you. So you need to provide for those animals, because pets are family members too. And most importantly, your kids. If you want to protect your kids against themselves, you want to structure it so maybe they get some money at 25, some at 30, and some at 35. You don't want to give all your assets to your kid in one shot. You know what happens then in that case? Hello, Corvette. Goodbye, college. So protect your kids against themselves. Don't give them all the money at one time. This way, if they marry the wrong person, their ex doesn't take the estate. Now, I know what you're thinking. My kids aren't going to get divorced. Not my two little angels. But I can say with a straight face that anybody that gets married doesn't think they're going to get divorced. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten married in the first place. I have lots of disaster stories. If you needed to take someone to a party and tell disaster stories, I have an unlimited amount. So if your kids make the wrong business move, or they make a silly investment, or they marry the wrong person, you don't want to make those mistakes permanent. And certainly you don't want to lose your estate to their mistakes. You don't want their mistakes to become your problems. So everybody who does a will and has kids, you can structure if they're older, so maybe they get some at 40, some at 45, and some at 50. Give them multiple bites at the apple. Stagger the distribution to them. If you're getting older, or your parents are getting older also, protect. I never met either one of my grandfathers. My son has met both of his. But if you added up all their medication, it would take up this entire desk. People are living longer and requiring care. Protect your home. The IRS says if you make a gift to charity, you can take a deduction. If you don't take that deduction, though, no one's going to do it for you. You don't get the credit for that gift to the charity. If you have a student loan and you work for the government, you can have that loan forgiven. But they're not going to do it automatically. You have to apply. If you have a home, you have the ability to put it into a trust to protect it. But if you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you. Now that sounded so good, probably. You're probably thinking to yourself, boy, all those reasons there's such strong reasons to do a trust. Why doesn't everybody do a trust? Well, a trust is not for everybody. There are some pretty big minuses, but they're not so great that you shouldn't do the trust. But the biggest minus is you can't be the trustee of your own trust. I can't be the trustee of my own trust, and neither can my wife. But my son can be the trustee of my trust. I'm the trustee of my dad's trust. My sister is the backup. That's downside number one. Downside number two, you have to do it in advance of a crisis. So you have to do it 5 years before the nursing home. I don't know when that's going to be. You don't know when that's going to be. Someone called us up and said, I want to do a trust for my house. I said, great. How old are you? She said, I'm 77. I said, okay. That's not great. You got to make it to 82. Probably should have done it a little earlier. And she says, no, you misunderstand. It's not for me. It's for my 97-year-old mom. 97-year-old mom had a multi-family house in Queens, which we put into a trust. It was worth several $1 million. We got her assets into the trust. 6 months later, she needed some home care, so we applied for home care benefits for her. We got her the home care, kept her home for another 4 years. She eventually had to go into a nursing home within the 5 years, so family chipped in, paid for the nursing home to get her over the 5-year mark, and then they kept a $3 million house because they were proactive. So you need to do the trust in advance. Everybody thinks they eat better than they do. Everybody thinks they exercise more than they do. And everybody thinks they're going to live longer than they do. So that's why you need to do this in advance. Early 60s is probably the right age to start thinking about protecting your home. If you're going to take out a loan or a mortgage, you probably should do it before you put it into the trust because you'll get better rates. Does it matter if you have a home, a condo, or a co-op? The answer is yes. A house, a deed, real property, very easy. A condo should be just as easy as the house. A co-op, much, much more difficult. You need permission from the co-op board to set up the trust. So then if they say no, you got a problem. It's very difficult to get around that. So if you have a co-op, you got to ask the managing agent if a trust is permissible. What's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid? Well, Medicare is health insurance for seniors. Medicare, everybody gets. When you get to 65, you get Medicare to help pay your health costs. For short-term care, like rehab, doctor care, hospital care. Medicare is short-term care. Medicaid pays for the aid. Medicaid is long-term care. Medicaid will pay for the home care. Medicaid will pay for the aid that lives you. Medicaid pays for the nursing home. But you have to be proactive. You have to protect your assets well before you get sick. Most people would prefer to age in place at home. Most people would prefer not to go to a nursing home and have an aide stay with them in their own home so they can age in place at home. There are basically 3 eligibility requirements to get the home care benefits. However, that's going to drastically change in January. This is today's rules. So if you have someone that's on the fence, I think mom's going to need care soon. Apply now. If you have someone who's already receiving care and they're private paying for it, transfer the money into a trust and apply for home care benefits now. Do not wait till the end of the year because it will become drastically different to get home care benefits as of January. So you need help with, there are 3 eligibility requirements to get the home care. This is an oversimplification. You need a medical need, help with activities of daily living. You need to put your assets into a trust, and then you need to put your income into a trust. Your pension, your Social Security, that goes into an income trust, which can be used to pay your bills. And you don't even have to do that. Your loved one can do it with the power of attorney. They don't look at retirement accounts. I know this is getting pretty deep into the weeds of complex stuff, but retirement accounts are great places to keep money because it grows tax deferred and it's protected from creditors. Why? Why would the government allow that? Because they wanted to encourage people to save for retirement because they thought Social Security would not be enough. So max out your 401k or your 457 and spend the non-protected money first. New York has something called spousal refusal. My wife and I are married. If I get sick, she can use the power of attorney to pull everything out of my name, put it in her name, and refuse to give it back. That makes me impoverished, and I will qualify for Medicaid right away. It only works for spouses. It does not work for domestic partners. But she can't do that without the power of attorney. She can't set up the income trust without the power of attorney or do the spousal refusal. That's why the power of attorney is so important. Those of you that are veterans out there, first of all, thank you for your service. And anybody who's been working as a first responder during the COVID, thank you for your service. I've been hiding behind my Zoom camera, and I do appreciate what you're doing, getting the world back on track. But I want you to remind you that there's a benefit out there for veterans or the spouse of a veteran called aid and attendance, like hearing aid, and you attended this Zoom that will give the veteran $1,850 a month towards care, or the surviving spouse $1,100 towards care, but you had to have served during a conflict. These are the dates of the conflict. Now I'm going to look through the Q&A right now. Am I muted? The answer is yes. Will this session be recorded? The answer is yes. No, it's very noisy from the traffic. I wish I saw that earlier because it's too late now. It's almost over. Can the law firm help me with a revocable living trust? Yes, we can. A revocable living trust, though, does not protect assets. It's used typically to avoid estate tax. We can help you with other trusts that are designed to protect assets. You just have to call us. Does your spouse get designated healthcare proxy by default? Yes. You may not want that. Your law firm did my wills in 1990. I want to update it. What is the process? Well, call us and we'll email you a new questionnaire and you should update that right away. 1990 was a long time ago. Your executors may not even be alive at this point. Your kids might be all grown up. Is an electronic copy on your phone acceptable for a healthcare proxy, or must it be a physical copy? Typically, a facility will take an electronic. You can email them a copy of a healthcare proxy. Sometimes a bank will want to see the original power of attorney, but a healthcare proxy, you can usually use an electronic copy. Under the typical legal plan, the trust for your kids is covered, but the trust to cover your house is not. So the minor's trust, the one that you use to stagger the distribution to your kids over time so they don't blow it all and marry the wrong person, that trust is free. The trust to protect your home is not free, but it's discounted. Is there a time when a durable power of attorney is not enough? But she cannot get the 1099. Oh, so sometimes the IRS will not honor a power of attorney, and they want you to use their power of attorney. Sometimes we can get them to accept it. The IRS can be difficult. The IRS and the VA sometimes can be difficult. To update the power of attorney, why do you need to update in July of this year? I missed it. But there's a new form coming out in July, and you want to have the latest, greatest form. See, I told you only half of the audience is listening. That is without my wife being her mother legal guardian. I'm not sure what that means. I'm married. Is it necessary to have a beneficiary on my bank accounts? You want to put a beneficiary on as many things as possible. If you do not have a beneficiary on it, Your heirs will have to probate your will. It's not the end of the world, but it is time consuming and there is a cost to it. So try and put a beneficiary in as many things as you can. This you have access to this Zoom. I don't know how you get to it. You could email Eileen in our office and she'll be able to tell you how to get access to the Zoom. If you want to get the will because you're in the middle of a divorce, call our office. We do this webinar every quarter. I don't know what this means. I'm the only one listening to you, Mr. Kramer. Oh, all right. So you're listening to everything. All right. Good job. I wish I could give you a star, but I can't. A power of attorney is not more important if you are wealthy or you have a modest amount of wealth. It's important because no one can make financial decisions for you if you don't do it. It's really important. That is your takeaway from today. There is a change in the home care benefits rule in coming out in January. If you have a loved one that needs home care benefits, if you will really want to apply before January because it will be more difficult to get. The veteran benefit, if you were a veteran and served during a conflict and you need extra income for care, there's a benefit that you might be eligible called aid and attendance. Okay, your backup, your trustee, or your backup power of attorney, or your healthcare proxy, or the primary. None of them have to live in New York. As long as they can live outside of New York. A trust for a disabled person is called a supplemental needs trust. If you have a disabled loved one you want to provide for, and you do not want to knock them off their benefits, you have to do something called a supplemental needs trust. And I think with your Legal Shield benefit, it's about a $750 trust. Without the legal plan, it's about $3,500. Really important trust if you have a disabled person. That is a giant savings. Will you be notified when the new form comes out for the power of attorney this summer? You are being notified now. Can my sister and granddaughter be my power of attorney or my trust agent? Well, is your granddaughter over 18? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. The presentation deck I don't typically make available because the rules change all the time. And I don't want you out there using the presentation and it's outdated and then you're practicing law without a license and giving people bad information. What is the problem with the principal not being a trustee of a trust? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, you can't be the trustee of your own trust. If you are the trustee of your own trust, you did not protect your assets. If I'm the trustee of my own trust, I can give my creditors the money. That's how the creditors are going to look at it. Give yourself $10 and give it to me. Can retirement elections be changed? Typically, yes, but you have to do it before it gets into payout status. The phone number, 1-800-832-5182. But it's probably on every single Legal Shield thing that they send you. If your will is 1 year old, you probably don't have to update it. You can set up a special needs trust for your daughter, even if they live with your ex-wife, because it's your trust for your money. If you get admitted to a hospital, they give you a healthcare proxy. Well, they don't if you're incapacitated. If you're alert and oriented, they will. But what happens if you do not have capacity when you go into a hospital? And anytime you do any of these documents, the one that you do second trumps the prior one and revokes the prior one. Irrevocable versus revocable. I'm going to oversimplify this, but revocable, no protection, and you're the trustee. Irrevocable, typically you're not the trustee and you get protection. Irrevocable does not mean irrevocable. It's a terrible word. It's a misnomer. It does not accurately depict the type of trust. With an irrevocable trust, you can change the trustee and you can change the beneficiary. the Social Security payment, all right, can you still get home care benefits if you have income? The answer is yes. Your income has to go into a trust. How can I avoid probate? Put a beneficiary in everything you have. But you can't do that on some things. You can't put a beneficiary in your car. You can't put a beneficiary in a house that easily. Sometimes you can't avoid probate and you have to do a trust. Can you have a power of attorney signed if a person is somewhat incapacitated? Well, you're either incapacitated or not. It's like you can't be half pregnant. You could have a lucid moment. If you have a lucid moment, you're not incapacitated. But if you were incapacitated, you can't do the power of attorney. But you could be incapacitated on Tuesday, lucid on Wednesday, and incapacitated again on Thursday. So you got to find that window. If an executor passes away, update your will or look to the backup executor. Do we have a team that serves Quebec, Canada residents? We don't hear. Call the law office if you want any of the forms, question mark. That doesn't seem like a question, so I don't know how to answer that. You can submit a will long after someone dies, but but the assets may be long gone by then. You should get the power of attorney done now, and then you can update it again this summer. How do I transfer a home without a trust and probate? That's very difficult to do and probably will not work the way you want it to work. Minor's trust is free, confirmed. How does a power of attorney work after the person dies? Well, that's an easy question. It does not. The power of attorney goes with you. I initially completed a power of attorney for my grandmother on my own. Probably a bad move. Probably won't work. Probably the wrong form. Will not work. If you executed it wrong, will not work. If you printed it out and the printer realigned the pages, it will not work. If you X'd a box or checked a box where you're supposed to initial, it will not work. If you use the wrong font size, it will not work. Do not do a power of attorney on your own. It is not worth it, and you will not find out it's no good until after you go to use it. All right, that's the end of the questions. Oh. There's lots of chats. I'm only looking in the Q&A. How much does a special needs trust cost? About $750. How much does it cost to set up a revocable trust? You probably don't need a revocable trust. Can the will be... Somebody texted a question without spacing it and didn't use real words, so I can't read that question. All right, we're running out of time, and the questions are coming in at light speed, and I can't get them all. So the great thing about the legal plan is you can call us and ask all these questions. I want to thank everybody for coming and listening. And stay safe out there. Get your vaccines. Avoid COVID. Let's get the world back to normal. I can't believe it, but almost 84 questions came in as soon as I said, no, I'm done with the questions. So it's too late for the questions at this point. I do appreciate all the questions. Now I can see the chat, but it's too late for that. We do this every quarter, and maybe we'll do another topic maybe on trust, since a lot of questions came up on trust. So everybody stay safe, take care, and thank you for being a Legal Shield member. Oh.